Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got advisories out, flood advisories here for the Kobuk River and also for small streams in the Kobuk and Noatak River basins. And that is out through Sunday afternoon. And then farther down to the southeast along the Alaska Range here, high wind advisory out for tonight and into tomorrow for winds gusting to 40 miles an hour or 40 to 50 miles per hour through the passes, mostly west of the Toke Cutoff. And out west currently and through tonight, there's a high wind warning out for the Pribilof Islands. That's actually not due to kick in until about 8 p.m. Friday evening, and it'll stay out through Saturday afternoon. Look for those northwest winds to increase 40 to 55 miles per hour with gusts to 80 miles per hour later this evening and overnight Friday night, with St. George Island mainly in the warning area though. And then there's a high wind watch out for the Alaska Peninsula, looking for northwest winds there to begin to pick up here late tonight and for the and through tomorrow there through the afternoon or through the entire evening Saturday. Northwest winds 40 to 55 miles an hour, gusts 75 miles per hour in the forecast there for that watch area. And moving on to the satellite imagery, we'll see that there's a lot of moisture here over the eastern interior, but the main band pushing off into Canada, trailing back down into the southeast coast. Another one here off the coast up into the southeast interior. Pretty good breaks today occurring over the Tanana Valley and also some breaks down in the Copper River Basin area. And then this system up here slowly moving east-northeastward with a little bit of rainfall up in that area. And then the big storm out here to the west, the intense storm, shows up quite vividly there, the center, pretty close to the Pribilof Islands, with the occluded front wrapping back around. Rain, Nunivak Island, actually rained through all this area here northward in across the St. Lawrence Island area. And that links up with another system trailing back into the Chukchi Sea, associated with a low center that's farther back toward Wrangell Island. And also this front lifting northeastward here across the Alaska Peninsula, actually back through here. There's some moisture shearing off from that, spreading a little bit of shower activity up to the Kodiak Island area, and locally back in across Bristol Bay, and then gusty winds and showers all the way back to Shemya. On the chart today, there's that center, about 969 millibars, which is about as intense as it's going to get here late Friday afternoon into this evening. The front line right through here, good gales out in advance of the front, but by far the strongest winds occurring here on the western and southwest quadrant of the low center there. Tight gradient in that area, and that's going to dramatically, already increasing the winds across the Pribilofs, and then later on overnight tonight for the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, clouds, showers, mostly over the western interior. Showers along this trough here, up along the North Gulf Coast from about roughly Yakutat back toward Cordova. And then scattered showers here with the trailing edge of this trough into the northern panhandle. But pretty good conditions up over the interior areas there with sunshine here for much of the 40-mile country back through the Tanana Valley and on out to the west. Forecast for tonight, that low center pulls eastward slowly, and that'll put the Pribilof Islands into that strong wind zone here. That will begin to also increase for the Fox Islands and the Alaska Peninsula. Rain occurring from roughly about Port Heiden westward, becoming more showery for the Dutch Harbor area. But rain continues to the Pribilofs tonight, right on up into the northern Bering Sea. And a trough up here to the north will keep showers going over the northwest part of the state. Dry here to the east, back down into the Tanana Valley, maybe some isolated showers beginning to develop along the Alaska Range, and then rain spreading in toward the southeast coast here, increasing back up toward Yakutat with some lingering showers over the northern panhandle, but fair on down to the south. And moving on to the outlook for tomorrow, we'll see that low center continues to track eastward here. Actually, a new low center develops late tonight, early tomorrow morning around Kodiak Island or just to the east, but by tomorrow afternoon, time of this map, it rotates back to the northwest and turns into a trough again. So we have this main 984 millibar low into eastern Bristol Bay there, and a pretty good trough will bring another round of wind and rain into the Kodiak Island area. The main front now up along the North Gulf Coast. Gale warnings ahead of that front, especially along the North Gulf Coast here. Winds also increasing along the southeast coast with rain, kind of that weak trough, slowly edging its way eastward into the mostly the northern southeast coast, and conditions will be coming down over the northern areas throughout the day. So by the afternoon, rain should spread northward all the way up to Skagway, but taking a little longer to get into the southern areas there with some showers down along the west side of Prince of Wales Island. Interior looking pretty good again, isolated rain or snow showers, maybe higher elevations of the Alaska Range. Dry, partly and mostly sunny from Tanana Valley northward up to the Arctic coast on the east side. And then area rain still through here from the northwest coast, Bering Strait, right on down, still across the Pribilofs, but winds beginning to diminish there now, but quite windy conditions here for the Alaska Peninsula. Again, under that high wind watch, because you got 75 miles per hour, and then those winds slowly diminishing there for the eastern Aleutian areas and the Fox Islands. Not too bad out toward Adak and Atka, maybe some sunshine, much lighter winds there, and that pattern extends all the way out to Shimmy and Attu, that ridge of high pressure kind of lying east-west out in that area. And then moving on to the outlook for Sunday, see that system moves off to the east there quite rapidly. Actually, the main low center drops down to the southeast here. Weakens to about 994 millibars with the main front already well into British Columbia. A new center forms there and moves eastward. But now also in the afternoon or during the day, a pretty strong upper level trough will smack into the southeast coast. So you'll see some moderate to heavy showers, definitely rain. Wind's not all that bad, but definitely a wet day coming up for the day here on Sunday with scattered showers back into the southeast interior areas. And then we've got some showers along the Alaska Peninsula, also back to the southwest coast here, northward in across the Bering Strait. And then we've got areas of clearing out here over the Aleutians. And for the temperatures, low temperatures tonight forecast to be in the upper 30s for the southeast interior areas, with mostly in the mid 40s here through the, well, roughly from about the Kobuk Valley southward through the Kuskokwim Valley into Bristol Bay, about the same for Kodiak Island. Also the Aleutians, mostly in the 40s tonight, upper 40s out towards Shimia, Pribilofs. Not much of a diurnal change with the wind and rain going on, and upper 30s or mid to upper 30s, maybe some upper 20s in the higher elevations of the Berks Range on out to the Arctic coast, and the Panhandle mostly in the 45 to 52 degree range. And for the highs tomorrow, again, look for rain to spread over the northern Panhandle. That'll hold the temperatures into the mid to upper 50s there. Could reach maybe the lower 60s over the southern southeast coast to be a little drier, but basically mid to upper 50s. Copper River Basin area, same thing for south central Alaska and Cook Inlet, 50s for Kodiak. Also northeast Bristol Bay, mid 50s, cooling into the lower 50s down over the down along the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, with lower 40s up along the Arctic coast to near 50 for the Berks Range with lower 50s back on out to the northwest. And then checking out the lows coming up for Sunday morning, Saturday night and Sunday morning. Bottoming out, not too bad here, mid to upper 30s, generally staying above freezing there for the southeast interior Copper River Basin. Could drop down to around 30 degrees, possibly Noatak and Northway, those locations. Otherwise, into the 40s for the Tanana Valley, westward right on out to the coast there, Seward Peninsula, lower 40s, and not too bad up over the north slope, generally in the mid-30s there, so staying above freezing, with lower 40s there along the northwest coast, 40s out over the Pribilofs and the Aleutians, and pretty mild here over the southern southeast coast, looking overnight lows in the lower 50s, otherwise upper 40s on up to the north. And then for the high temperatures Sunday afternoon, shaping up like this, lower 40s Arctic coast, mid 40s possibly for the north slope, Brooks Range 50s to near 60, upper Yukon Valley there with the sunshine, could be in the 60, 65 degree range in some of those areas there with near 60 into the Kuskokwim Valley, back into the mid to upper 50s down to the southwest as well as the southeast coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather for tomorrow morning, we've got a little area of IFR here associated with the storm center, which will be right about there early on. And then some areas of IFR back to the west and north up to St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, marginal VFR Bering Sea, VFR here for the Aleutians, and areas of marginal VFR Gulf of Alaska, some IFR up here along the North Gulf Coast, around Cape Yakataga, and areas of IFR much of the Arctic coast. And then for tomorrow afternoon, the entire stretch of the coastline up there looks IFR southward here into the Chukchi Sea. A little bit more IFR along the southwest coast, that low sliding eastward here, and that's going to increase the IFR along the Kenai Peninsula, western Prince William Sound, also along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and over the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Conditions coming down over the northern panhandle in the afternoon. And then for Sunday morning, a little bit more IFR out here over the eastern Bering Sea from the Bering Strait, sailing on down to the Alaska Peninsula, otherwise marginal VFR up across Kodiak, the Gulf of Alaska. Not too bad over the interior, more widespread IFR now pushing down across the north slope to the Brooks Range, and not too bad out west. And then for Sunday afternoon, this area moves eastward and becomes a little more extensive with more IFR on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northward along the coast of Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island areas, and across the north side of the Yukon Delta, IFR, eastern Arctic coast, central north slope. A lot of VFR over the interior and just marginal VFR mainly over the central and southern southeast coast and along or off the coast here of the North Gulf Coast areas in the Cross of Barren Islands. Passes looking like this Anaktuvuk tomorrow, marginal VFR early becoming VFR. That same forecast holds for Adigan as well with Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR much of the day tomorrow with increasing IFR on both of the eastern approaches there. And for rainy though, just looks marginal. And then for windy, not enough, be some clouds, but they'll stay VFR. And Isabel and Mentasta both looking pretty good with VFR. Mentasta, as I mentioned, VFR, and then Tanita. VFR, enough moisture may slide northwestward to bring possible marginal VFR in the afternoon. And Portage, marginal VFR becoming IFR, definitely in the afternoon. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR probably only becoming marginal late in the day, possibly IFR. And the freezing levels, 4,000 feet here over much of the interior, a couple of cold pockets right through here, then 6,000 to 8,000 feet across the Panhandle, and out over the Bering, about 4,000 feet across much of the area. Icing looking like this. Areas of isolated moderate, otherwise light here from the Chukchi Sea southward, St. Lawrence Island, sliding on down across the Pribilofs, and then some more icing possibilities down here over the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay, especially early in the day and then tending to fall back in the afternoon. And the heaviest icing here as the front pushes eastward. North Gulf Coast could see some widespread moderate rime icing above about 5,000 feet, tapering off, actually this area approaching the southeast coast during the day, and areas of icing extending westward across Prince William Sound into south central Alaska, all south or east of the Alaska Range. Jet stream, strong flow across the Pacific here, splits right just south of the Gulf of Alaska with probably the stronger branch heading in toward the southeast coast there, but about 40 to 50 knots. And for the 9,000 foot winds, be looking something like this tomorrow, kind of elongated trough right through here. Main center sliding eastward into Bristol Bay tomorrow afternoon, crossing the Aleutian Range with strong winds out ahead of the front, 30 to 50 knots here, increasing along the southeast coast, up to 50 knots North Gulf Coast, falling back to 30 over south central Alaska. Looks like the strongest winds, 55 to 70 knots, blowing across from the Pribilof down across the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Same pattern here at 3,000 feet with northerly winds 35 to 40 over the northern Bering, taking a turn, becoming westerly, 65 knots across the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Lighter near the low centers. New low center here forming near the Barren Islands. Strong winds on the north side of that with the front 40 knots along the North Gulf Coast. Turbulence. With that front, look for occasional moderate there and then possible severe below 5,000 feet for the Alaska Peninsula. And after the break, we'll be back with the marine forecasts.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you're going to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything. So you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, this area here north of Mackenzie Bay, edging back a little bit. Otherwise, not a lot of change here. Still well up to the north here, about 300 nautical miles, and way off to the northwest. Not a lot of change in the forecast here for the next 4 or 5 days. And for the marine forecast tomorrow, the front pushing in toward the coast. Winds coming up here 25 to 30 on the south coast. Gales on the north coast. These building up to 14 feet for the north coast in the afternoon. Southerlies at 15 there for northern Lynn Canal, and southeast at 10 for the central and southern inside waters. Outlook for Sunday, gales turn into easterly winds at 20 knots with 13-foot seas holding here, 14 on the north coast, east 25, and swinging around to the west at 20 knots with 12-foot seas down to the south, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait, northerlies at 15 for the central areas on up into northern Lynn Canal. And on to Prince William Sound for tomorrow. Got that front swinging up to the North Gulf Coast, so east winds increasing 30 knots sustained, storm force gusts at 50, seas at about 7 feet, and east 35 gales from the North Gulf Coast here. On the east side there with storm force gusts, 11-foot seas, drop it down to 25 here for the western North Gulf Coast, and then back into the gales for the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories here for Cook Inlet, northeast 25. Outlook for Sunday, much lighter winds coming up here, 10 to 15 knots for Cook Inlet, northwest for Kachemak Bay, and from the Barren Islands here and the west side of the North Gulf Coast, north at about 20, east 20 on the east side there. Prince William Sound, northwest at 10. And for east side of Kodiak tomorrow, northwest 30 knots, 19-foot seas, Shelikof Strait southwest at 20, and then Sitkinak to Castle Cape southwest 45. Good storms here south side of the peninsula. Hurricane force wind warning for the Alaska Peninsula. And for Sunday, those fall back. Westerlies 30 to 35. Gales here on the Pacific side of the peninsula, right up to Sitkinak. 15, Shelikof Strait, pick up to 30 knots on the east side of Kodiak. Small craft advisories, Bristol Bay. For the Aleutians, light out west, picking up to about 30 knots here for the Adak-Atka area. Gales turn into hurricane force wind warnings there for the north side of the eastern Aleutians with a full gale to the south. Those drop back down to small crafts here for the next day, west to northwest 25, and then turning northeast from Nikolsky all the way out to Adak and Atka, 20 to 25, and then small craft advisories out and out to the west. For the southwest coast here, South of Nunivak Island, small cat advisories, northeast at 25, 13-foot seas. And the hurricane force wind warning out tonight for the Pribilofs turns into a storm warning tomorrow. Winds coming down to 50 knots out of the northwest, down to 30 knots there for the Bering, northeast 30 for St. Lawrence Island. And then the next day, north to northwest, 25, St. Lawrence Island along the southwest coast. Same thing for the Pribilofs, on up to St. Matthew Island, northwest 25, seas 9 to 11 feet. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, kind of a light variable wind pattern, east 15, central coast on down to the west. Cape Beaufort, southward to the Bering Strait northerlies up to 25 knots. And then for Sunday, here for the central and east side, east 15 knots, seas uniform as well at 3 feet. And then northerlies at 15 for the western coast here, and then from Cape Beaufort down to Cape Thompson, north at 20, Cape Thompson down to Wales, north 25 with 5-foot seas. And looking at tonight's forecast again, high wind warning tonight, Pribilof Islands, especially St. George, could see gusts to 80 miles an hour out of the west-northwest, low center poles eastward, get into that tight gradient there in pressure field. Same thing here, Alaska Peninsula. High wind warning out now for tonight as well, gusts 75 miles an hour, actually late tonight through tomorrow. Rain and wind spreading into the Gulf of Alaska from Kodiak Island, with rain pushing into the interior in a narrow band. Rain northward across the western Seward Peninsula. And then for tomorrow, low center pulls to about the Aleutian Range. And again, the winds start to come down in the afternoon for the Pribilofs. High wind warning for the Alaska Peninsula. Rain and wind increased on the southeast coast, south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast, fair over the interior areas there, especially from the Tanana Valley on up to the eastern Arctic coast, looking pretty good with some sunshine. And that'll hold through Sunday as well up there with some upper ridging in place. Otherwise, that front moves across the Panhandle on overnight Saturday with rain and showers following in behind, less wind out to the west. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.